Hello and welcome to this Generative AI with LangChain Masterclass. So in the last couple of years, apart from AI, which is artificial intelligence, two new terms are frequently used, which are generative AI and agentic AI. Since this series is about generative AI with LangChain, so the first thing is to tackle this buzzword, generative AI, and where does generative AI stand vis-a-vis traditional AI and agentic AI. So the first question is, what exactly is generative AI? So generative AI, also known as Gen AI, is a subset of AI that goes beyond analyzing data. As the name itself suggests, it can generate new original content in the form of text, image, audio, video, and writing code in multiple programming languages. So most of us have used ChatGPT to enter a request and get a response from AI. So that's one feature of Gen AI. It responds to user prompts with outputs that feel human-like, creative, and original. So how does generative AI models achieve this? So they achieve this capability by learning patterns from massive data sets using deep learning and neural networks. Though that is just a broader term, as there are multiple specialized training approaches and architectures which are used to train AI models like transformers, GANs, which is generative adversarial networks, diffusion models. We won't go into details of all this in this generative AI video. Now, when a user enters a prompt, these models understand context in those prompts to generate relevant high quality responses. That way, these models produce original content that isn't just copied from training data, but synthesized in real time, actually. Here, let's take a moment to be sure about this point that Gen AI is producing original content that isn't just copied from training data, but synthesized in real time. Earlier, there was a misconception that Gen AI can only generate content based on what was already fed to the model during training. Nothing original, just repackaging existing data. That's what many people thought. So, let me give you two news items within the last 6 months. I am talking about the duration between early 2026 to mid 2026. So these news show that Gen AI has made massive strides in the last 2 years, and it is able to generate original content, and that too at the speed which is beyond human capabilities. So here is an excerpt from a tweet by Jana Dogan, or it may be Yana Dogan, I'm not sure about the name, but she's a principal engineer working on Google's Gemini API. So that's what she tweeted. We have been trying to build distributed agent orchestrators at Google since last year. There are various options, not everyone is aligned. I gave Claude Code a description of the problem. It generated what we built last year in an hour. So, a whole team brainstorming and putting across ideas for an year, and Claude generated the solution in an hour. Then there was also news about a math problem, actually, the Erdos unit distance problem, which was unsolved from the last 80 years. And it was solved by an OpenAI model. So here is a link where you can see news or you can search for that. That solution was not there in its training data, right? It was able to solve it on its own. So now, as I said in the beginning, the three terms used a lot for AI these days are traditional AI, generative AI, and agentic AI. To understand how these three forms of AI differ, let's define them in terms of their functionality and scope. So, traditional AI. It refers to systems designed to analyze data, do predictive analytics, or perform specific pre-programmed tasks using fixed rules and algorithms. So it is analytical rather than creative. So as an example, you can take a sensor that simply turns a bulb on or off based on input like motion detection. So that will generally fall under traditional AI, or you can say it is a rule based automation. One more example is classifying emails as spam or not spam using machine learning. That will also fall under traditional AI. It is a machine learning based predictive AI. Coming to generative AI, so it expands AI's scope by enabling machines to create new content, text, images, audio, video, code using deep learning models. It is creative but remains largely reactive to human prompts rather than being autonomous. So you can take as an example Chat GPT or DALI. You give it a prompt, it can generate new text, images, or code that didn't exist before, right? Then we have agentic AI. So using agentic AI, you can create autonomous agents that can understand goals. Then they can plan, reason, take actions, and interact with environments or other systems to achieve those goals. So unlike generative AI, agentic AI doesn't just produce content. It can decide and act independently. So for example, an agent could be tasked with, let's say, research the best laptops under $1,000 and email me a summary. So it will search the web, compare options, and even send an email without constant human input. So it will be able to do its work independently. So here are some differences. Can just go through that. So core function, as we have already talked, it is more rule based. Traditional AI, generative AI can create new content. Agentic AI can work independently. Examples, as I said, spam, sensor based rules, ChatGPT, DALI, Cloud Code, AutoGPT, LangGraph agents, Cloud Code agents. Data use, if you see, traditional AI uses mostly relies on structured data sets, tables, labeled examples, which are mostly domain specific. It will try to solve a specific problem. Whereas generative AI is trained on huge data sets, image libraries, audio recordings, text corpora. Agentic AI also uses the same kind of massive data sets plus real time inputs from APIs or sensors. So it can get some real time data also to act on that. Output, if you see in traditional API, traditional AI, it will generally produce some kind of classification or decision. So outputs are mostly deterministic and narrow in scope. Whereas with the Gen AI, you can create whole artifact, essays, poems, audio, video, code, many things, right? With the agentic AI, you can go through the whole automated workflow. How autonomous it is? With traditional AI, it is low. It will operate strictly within predefined rules. Whereas with Gen AI, it is medium because it depends on the prompt you give, right? In that way, it needs human guidance to start. Whereas with agentic AI, autonomy is very high. It can self direct, adapt strategies, and pursue objectives with minimal supervision. So, human intervention is not required at that level as in traditional AI or Gen AI. So, same thing, human role. So, with traditional AI, that is more, whereas with the Gen AI, it is kind of medium. You can say you provide prompt, you act as a co-creator. Whereas with agentic AI, you just set the goals, it will try to execute those goals or reach that goal on its own. Limitations, narrow scope, rigid, struggles with ambiguity or creativity. Is creative but lacks agency. Whereas with agentic AI, it can do the work, but it is still evolving and some risks are there. So now, as generative AI and LLMs become increasingly mainstream, a whole new set of technical terms is entering our everyday conversations. So you'll often encounter technical terms like tokens, context window, parameters, etc. So let's try to go through some of these terms to get a better understanding of the working of these models. So these terms you'll come across a lot. So if you have a better idea of these terms, it will help you. So first is token. So that is the smallest unit of input and output, word, subword, or character. So when you give an input, so that user prompt is actually broken down into tokens before being sent to the model. So for example, if you give a prompt like what is generative AI, so it may be split into four tokens. What is generative AI? If it is by word, if it is subword, maybe even more tokens. Character wise, then even more tokens. That depends on the model. Then output side also, it will generate responses token by token, predicting the next most likely token until the sequence is complete. So companies that own these models, right, they typically charge based on the number of tokens processed. And they have different charges for input tokens and output tokens actually. Then the second thing is context window. So that is the maximum number of tokens a model can consider at once, which means how much data you can send at once to the LLM actually, right? So larger context windows mean the AI can process, remember, and analyze massive amounts of data at once. So just to give you a perspective, GPT-5 has a context window of 400,000. So up to 272K for input and 128K for output. Whereas Claude 4 Sonnet has a context window of 1 million tokens. Then there is prompt engineering. So it is the process of crafting effective user instructions, prompts to guide model responses. So you can give explicit instructions to the LLM to guide its response. So the techniques which you can use are zero shot prompting, which means you just send a prompt without any example. For example, you are just sending what is generative AI and get a response from LLM. Then there is few shot prompting, where you can provide a handful of examples to shape the output. That means here, if you see, we have a prompt where we are saying classify the sentiment of customer feedback into one of three categories: positive, negative, or neutral. Then we are giving some examples also, that if feedback is like this, that means sentiment is positive. If it is like this, then negative, and if this is the feedback, then sentiment is neutral. So you are giving some data to the LLM to guide its response, that its output should be in this format, and it should follow this kind of categories, three categories, right? Then there is also a way with few shot prompting to guide the output also, what output you get from LLM. So here is one more example where you are saying in a prompt, extract the product and price from the messages, and format of the output should be same as given in the following examples. Then you give the example where you are explicitly telling how the output should look like. So kind of JSON, right? Where you are telling it product, then product name, price, then price. There is also chain of thought prompting, which encourages the model to reason step by step. So actually goal is to place some guardrails or constants around the interaction, which ensures that the response of the model, right, that stays focused on the query and delivers the desired outcome actually. So that is why prompt engineering is important. Then transformers. So that is actually a neural network architecture which uses self-attention to process sequences. So this architecture is the core of modern LLMs. Then we have parameters, which actually is trainable weights and biases in the model. The total count and configuration of these parameters define the model's capacity and memory. So if you have seen some model names, right, you will also always see some number with it, like Llama 3.18b. So here 8b means 8 billion parameters. And with 8 billion parameters, it is actually a small language model. You have Llama 3.370b model also, which is 70 billion. Actually, you will consider it as a parameter wise okay, medium or a large language model, but on a lower side of a large language model. So just to give you a perspective, that exact numbers are not given, but estimates for GPT-5 model range from 2 to 5 trillion parameters actually. Then we have hallucination. So LLMs are designed to predict the next word in a sequence based on pattern in their training data. If user's prompt does not explicitly instruct the model to refrain from answering when uncertain. So how you can do that is by adding in your prompt something like this. That's how it looks like, right? That's what you can tell. If you don't know the answer, say I don't know the answer. Do not attempt to invent or guess. So if you give that in the prompt, this kind of explicit instruction, LLM will not try to give an answer if it does not know. If you don't give such explicit instructions, AI may attempt to produce a response even if it doesn't know the answer. And in such cases, it often generates information that sounds plausible but factually incorrect or misleading. So that phenomena of LLM is known as hallucination. Then we have temperature. So that controls the randomness in output. Higher temperature means more creative, lower means more deterministic. And typically temperature ranges from 0 to 1, can go up to 2 also, making the result very unpredictable actually. So if you are using LLM to write essay or poem, something very creative, right, then you can set temperature in the range maybe 0.6 to 1. If you want a to the point kind of answer, right, more deterministic, then set a low temperature, 0 to 0.2 kind of. Then there is also multimodal models, models that handle multiple input output types. So one LLM can do more than one kind of job. It can generate text also, it can generate images also, that are known as multimodal models. Then we also have RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So that combines LLMs with external knowledge sources for more accurate responses. So that's where you'll use many classes of LangChain actually to load your own documents through document loaders, create embeddings for them, store them in vector DBs. All that will come further down the course. Now we come to the impact areas of generative AI. So that's one of the hot topic these days, right? How capable are these LLM models and how many jobs will eventually be eliminated because of AI? So generative AI, if you see, is already woven into our daily life. It is shaping how we work, learn, shop, and entertain. It is automating routine tasks, personalizing our learning and entertainment, accelerating professional workflows, and transforming how we interact with technology. When Gen AI is already doing all of these things, then let's see what are the impact areas. If we see work and productivity, there we have tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, GitHub Copilot, Cloud Code, which can handle tedious, monotonous tasks such as drafting emails, summarizing documents, and generating code. This allows professionals to focus on complex, high level problem solving. But that also means less demand for personal assistants and secretaries and developers, right? Maybe where a team of 10 was needed for developing an application, now a team of 3 or 4 can produce the same output with the help of LLMs. But still, those 3 4 should be technically sound and must have domain knowledge, right? So, programming knowledge is still required. You can't just say, okay, LLM will do everything, so why learn coding? Then creativity and content creation. So now we have platforms or tools like Midjourney, Dali, and VO, which can empower even non-artists to generate professional grade images, branding assets, and even music from simple text prompts. What that means is less demand for graphic designers and Photoshop skills, right? Then you have customer service and search. So AI powered chatbots now provide rapid human like 24 by 7 customer support. Furthermore, if you do a search in any search engine, that will now synthesize answers directly, skipping the need to click through multiple websites. Correct. So in a way, that means no need to go to various blogs and different knowledge sources to get what you were looking for. So it's right there at the top as AI generated content in Google or Bing or whatever search engine you are using. Then there is automated call handling. So AI chatbots and voice assistants can handle routine inquiries like balance checks, appointment confirmation, reservations. That reduces the need for human agents in repetitive tasks. But that also means no need of a big team of telecallers and receptionists, right? Then we have automated transcription. So there are tools like Otter.ai, Sonics, and Whisper, which can transcribe meetings, interviews, and calls in real time with high accuracy. So that means no need for transcribers. Then we have multi-language support also. So AI handles multiple languages and dialects, reducing barriers in global communication. But in a way, that also means less demands for translators. So with these use cases or where it can assist, it brings some challenges also with these use cases. First is data privacy. AI systems often rely on personal or proprietary data. Misuse or leaks can compromise sensitive information. So if you are working with agents, you need to provide them credentials to access mails, DBs, right, databases without human intervention. That may lead to agents having complete control. You might have heard the news, right, that agents have deleted all the mails, deleted the production database. So that all happened because of not keeping human in the loop. Then we have copyright and intellectual property. So AI generated art, music, and text raise questions about ownership. Who owns the rights? User, the AI provider, or the original dataset contributors? There are also copyright issues related to the training of the models. Many generative models are trained on large datasets scraped from the internet, which often include copyrighted books, videos, and articles. So there are many lawsuits also going on for that. Then a big trouble is through deep fakes and misinformation. The generative AI can create highly realistic fake videos, voices, or documents, making it harder to distinguish truth from manipulation. Then there is also a debate about human creativity versus AI assistance. So should AI be a co-creator or a replacement of human? So this balance of human creativity with AI assisted output is critical, and that's what we are looking for these days. Then bias and fairness. So models trained on biased data sets may unintentionally reinforce stereotypes or discriminatory patterns. That also many times in news have come, right? Such news where they are giving some answer based on what they learned during training, which may be racist or sexist or such kind of, right? Now we come to why we need LangChain for generative AI. LangChain is a popular framework for building LLM powered applications actually. So if you are not just consuming AI through APIs, right? When you are not just giving prompt and getting response from chat GPT or any such interface, but you actually want to design custom generative AI applications and pipelines, then you will use LangChain, which is one of the most developer friendly choices. So it provides you tools for prompt management, chaining workflows, memory handling, and agent creation. It enables developers to connect LLMs with external data sources, so you can create RAG applications. Is widely used for chatbots, RAG, and agentic AI systems. Okay, so that is all for generative AI, and see you around for all the LangChain topics to gain knowledge towards becoming a Gen AI developer. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.